Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Strangers, Chapter 3, the 2026 movie that was directed by Rennie Harlin and written by that of Alan R. Cohen, Alan Freeland, and executive produced by Madeline Petch. So, I finally saw this movie a while back, and I've been wanting to talk about it, but I've been busy. And I've seen all the Stranger movies, all five. Now, of course, as everybody knows, the first two were over 20 years ago, and they was created by somebody completely different. And they are not connected, which at least it doesn't seem to be, but whatever. But then now in the 2020s, they decided to make a trilogy and everything and explain like why the Strangers do what they do, their backstories and this and that. This has been one of those things that where the actual hardcore fans of this movie series object against like exposing the identities of like the Strangers, giving them backstories, this and that. They are also unanimous and pretty much disliking this entire trilogy. Now, when it comes to me, if you ever hear me talk about these movies before, which you have, 'cause I talked about, well, now I've talked about all four, but I have not talked about the first, only because of the simple fact I'm just not a huge fan of this franchise. Like, I'm just not. The first one I thought was okay, but it was a different type of slasher movie than I'm used to. So I just wasn't really feeling it, and I didn't feel like talking about it. The second one I talked about because I like it a slightly bit more, but it's still not great in my opinion. But I like the two lead actresses. So I do tend to watch that movie periodically, like, every once in a while, you know what I'm saying? Because I like the two lead actresses in that second movie. With this new trilogy and everything, I only watched it because I was kind of curious to see what they would change from the original ones. Also, I do like Madeline Petch because of from what I remember from the first two seasons of Riverdale before I checked out of that show. In fact, I didn't even finish the second season. That's how bonkers that show got and just how bad that show got. And so I watched these movies for pretty much her and everything, right? And I'll say for a person who is not a fan of this franchise, I'm still not a fan of this franchise, but I will say chapter one is a bit more, well, it's better than chapter two and chapter three because at least there was some effort in chapter one, but for the most part, it's just a lazy like remake. Like they copied and paste elements from the first two movies over 20 years ago and incorporated it in a new story in chapter one. And so it's basically you're just watching like The Strangers and The Strangers Pray at Night, but with a brand new cast and everything. But it's basically the same two movies and everything, minus the children of the second movie. And so, but when you look at this as a trilogy in all three movies, chapter one is a heck of a lot better. And that movie got ripped to shreds by so many of the fans and stuff. Chapter 2 is abysmal. Chapter 2 should never exist. Chapter 2 is a movie that I literally said there is no point going to the movie theaters and watching it. There's no point in watching this on streaming. And I've never said that about like a movie or like anything, a television show or nothing like that. Like even the worst stuff I feel like deserves to be watched, but there is no point in literally watching that movie. It is a pointless movie. It's basically a 2-hour chase movie with little to no dialogue, little to no substance. You don't figure out much of anything, and there's a boar fight. I'm gonna get into that a little bit later because the actress commented on that. Oh boy. And so it was just kind of like, okay, so what this third one's gonna be? Please say it's gonna be good at least, right? Because after the reception of the first movie, the people who created this trilogy, because they filmed all the movies back to back for some stupid reason. And that's the dumbest thing ever, because you need feedback. Like you do. You need feedback on either if you're gonna pursue a second movie or not. And you need feedback to try to fix the mistakes of like the first movie. Well, after hearing the feedback, they had to go do reshoots and rewrites of the second and third movie. And that costs a lot of freaking money, especially because they're filming in another country and they have to fly everybody back out over there and stuff. And the cast is pretty small, but still, they have other projects to do, you know? So, the third movie, it was a nice effort, and it's better than the second, or chapter two, I should say. And for the most part, elements of this movie should have been chopped up and with elements of the second movie, and then just made that into chapter two movie. But they didn't do that. And it's literally this is what the craziest thing about chapter three, right? Nothing really happens, but a lot of stuff happens in the movie, but nothing happens, if that makes any sense, which it doesn't make no sense. And so this was a failed trilogy attempt and everything. Like, I understand the effort put in, you know what I'm saying? But this is one of those things that where people need to go back to the drawing board, and some people need to be left out of the kitchen, which is something I said in the second movie. And so when it comes to that, of the stranger reveals. Well, actually, first, let me just do a quick little recap of what goes on in this movie. So, the events of all three movies takes place within seconds of each other, right? Not days, not months, not years, like minutes and seconds. And so Maya, played by Madeline Petch, she is the, like, you know, final girl. And so in the first movie, she's with her boyfriend or fiance. They go to a town that they've never been to before. They go to like a BRB type place, and they get attacked by three strangers. And the town is very small. The town has a bunch of like rednecks that just stare at you the entire time. So it makes you wonder who these strangers are, right? They kill her fiance, they chase her all around, and they thought they killed her. But then she wakes up in the hospital, which is a rehash of the second movie, Pray at Night. And so in the second movie, the strangers are kind of like, crap, we gotta finish her off and everything before people try to figure out what's going on and this and that. So she escapes the hospital, which is completely deserted. This is one of those movies where there's like nobody in town. And it's like, I get it's a small hick town, but there's gotta be somebody. And so there was really nobody in the hospital. She escapes, and then she runs out into the woods all night and all morning. And then she gets attacked by a boar, and then she meets like some people at the hospital, along with these people driving by, and she doesn't trust them, and she goes back to their place, and one of them ends up being a killer, and then like, you know, she kills one of them, and she kills the pinup girl. And so next thing you know, like what happens after that, right? Well, pretty much like what happens is that she still doesn't trust nobody. She's still trying to make it on her own, but then she gets caught because one of the strangers, the scarecrow, finds her, I think like in a church. How this dude is able to always find her and everything is weird. And so he takes her and pretty much like he's going to brainwash her. I forget the term that they use in criminal terms. I think what's her name? Belle from Beauty and the Beast was this. Stockholm Syndrome, that's it. He's going to brainwash her and make her the new pinup doll and everything. And he's hoping that being with him and like the baby doll girl will help turn her evil, and she can be part of their trio and everything. And so she's just there, always kind of tied up, and they go and they find a new victim, which the two actual killers kill, but she ends up killing Baby Doll, and Baby Doll never gets the mask taken off. But we find out who Baby Doll is through a flashback, but she doesn't look the same as an adult. You just have to read the credits, and it's who I figured it would be and everything, because that's the only other credible like star in like this movie, and everybody else are like background folks. And so then he causes her to like kill this complete stranger with a machete. And so throughout the whole movie, she's just there in his captivity. He's talking to her. She just stares at him. Like she stares at him for the majority of the movie. And that's really all she does. And something I've noticed about Maya, with the exception of chapter 1, in chapter 2 and 3, all she does is be completely silent and just stare. She has little to no dialogue, and she is the main star. In fact, when you look at chapter 2 and chapter 3, because the cast is so small, but even when you see like the background characters and the rest of the cast, this might as well have been a silent movie because of the simple fact nobody ever really talks. And if they do, they have a very, very small amount of dialogue. The only time there's really ever anybody who talks in these last two movies are like when people from out of town come in, or like her family members and stuff. That's about it. Everybody else is just about as silent can be. And that is very weird because of the simple fact your lead star needs to say something. We need to know who she is, but you do see a shift and a change with her character that makes absolutely no sense. In the first movie, she has dialogue, and she's running her dialogue off that of her boyfriend or fiance, whatever he is. And throughout the first movie, she is completely terrified, right? And I mean completely terrified. And so it's like she's not a fighter. She can't outthink her way out of it. She can kind of hide, but that's about it. But she's always getting caught. And she tries her best to stay silent, but she's always crying and making noises, right? So that is who she is in the first movie. Fine, that's great. That's a slasher movie. This is the first time we saw this character. This is how she should be. She shouldn't be this brawler or nothing like that. You really want to put the fear in the audience, so that's great. But come the second movie that takes place a few minutes after like the first movie, all of a sudden Maya is a completely different person. And that's how she is throughout the entire movie. Her personality changes in all three movies, but her fingernail polish and her makeup stays excellent. This is one of those weird movies where, 'cause I've said this before, Madeline Petch is drop dead gorgeous, and all you see is her shiny, glossy fingernails and stuff all throughout the movie, looking perfect. Like that is, like, it's distracting and everything. Another thing that's distracting is her gorgeous face. Even when she has dirt on her face or bruises or cuts and everything, she is still flawless looking because she has so much makeup on her. And it's just kind of like when I'm watching this movie, I'm all like, dude, 2 whole nights of like you being attacked and running in the woods and getting attacked by a boar and getting attacked by people, and yeah, you got these huge blood splats on your face, but her face still looks like they applied brand new makeup to make her look flawless and everything. Nothing about that seems realistic. And so crap, what was the time? Was I in chapter 2 or chapter 3 now? And so let's see. I forgot what I was gonna say. So I was talking about something about like, how she is and how she's different, but okay, whatever. But yeah, her personality is different through each movie. Now I remember what I was going to say. In the second movie, she is smarter. In the second movie, somehow she knows medical triage. In the second movie, now all of a sudden she knows about camping and how to make like forest fires and this and that. In the second movie, she knows how to like scavenge and look for home food and this and that. I think she ate some raw meat because now she is a fighter. She fought off a boar with a knife. And then she started eating some of the meat and cooking it up in the fire. And I'm all like, where did these skills come from? There is nothing that indicates in the first movie she has all these survival skills. It takes skill to do medical triage on yourself, sew up your wound and everything like that, and clean it and disinfect it. It takes camping skills to learn how to make a proper campfire and everything. Have you ever watched Survivor? You just can't rub some sticks together or click some rocks together and hope a fire is going to stay there all night. No, you have to learn how to kindle the wood and all that other crap. Blow on it and get like certain leaves and dry wood and all this other crap. And so it's just kind of like, where did all these freaking skills come from? Now, in the third movie, her personality has shifted once again. Now there is the potential of when you see her, is she being turned? Is she going to turn into a murderer? And does she care about like her family or anybody else? Is she hollow inside? And I'm just kind of like, who the heck is this woman? She has three completely different personalities throughout three completely different films that take place within minutes of each other. Now, it's one thing if this is a trilogy and each sequel takes place 1 or 2 years or more after another, but they don't. So it's like they're trying to turn her into like Sidney Prescott or Julie James or Laurie Strode and everything. But she has not earned that title yet. Laurie Strode, depending on which continuity you look at, has had decades of being afraid and preparing for Michael Myers to come back. Sidney Prescott literally gets chased by a brand new killer almost every 2 years or every decade and everything, or every 2 decades. She is a true final girl. She was built up from the bottom all the way up to the top. She started off scared and everything, happy and joyful. But then as the first movie kept progressing, we saw more of her attitude come out and more of her survival instincts. By the second movie and every other movie, she learned to be a fighter and using the gun and how to prepare herself. Maya ain't none of that. And for her personality just to change this quick and everything is just so weird. But then you do wonder, is she turning or not, right? Because all she literally does is stare. And the type of stare she has is a really odd one. It's not a I'm scared stare. It's not a I'm mad stare. It's not a like learning from you stare. It's not a like I'm joining you type of stare. It's just like a stare, like you're watching somebody, you're keeping your eye on them, very, very, very hawk-like. And if they try to come near you, your initial reaction is to kind of like move back or not let them touch you. But she doesn't do that. She just stares at them and lets him constantly grab her and put his hand around her throat and this and that. And so it's just kind of like, what the heck is going on in her mind? Because her facial expression is giving off like some kind of like, I can't make it out kind of like expression, like vibe or look or whatever. But that's all it is. She just stares at him all throughout the movie. And it's like, he says a bunch of stuff to her and she's just staring, looking at him. And so like, he's trying to teach her how to like let go of everything, be hollow inside so you don't have any emotions. And when she killed like Baby Doll and everything, he could care less. And when it comes to Pinup Doll, which he loves to death because that's his actual girlfriend, and he has a shrine with her and everything, he just throws her body in the wood chipper and stuff. Like he could care less after that because he's gonna make a new pinup doll and everything. And so then her sister, brother-in-law, and I don't know who this black dude is, comes to look for her. I don't know if the black dude's like a bodyguard or what, but he kind of acts like one. So they go into town asking a bunch of questions, and everybody just kind of looks at them like they always do and not really wanting to say nothing. And so one of the waitresses starts to talk, and the other waitress is kind of like, what the heck is she doing? And blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we later find out that other waitress was kind of like, what is she like? Why is she talking and stuff? That's the baby doll killer. But I thought she already died. The editing and pacing in this is kind of weird, and there's a reason for that. And so, because there are times where you will look at like the Maya character and it looks like it's nighttime, but then every place else where everybody else is during the day. So it's like, who the heck is editing this crap? I'll get into that a little bit later. So anyway, so the waitress tells like the family, this has happened before. People died in town, but it's only strangers. So they're suspicious, and they're suspicious of the sheriff. Turns out the sheriff is in on this, but he's not one of the strangers. He's just the one who cleans it up because the scarecrow dude is his son. And so, like always, when people start trying to like explain things or figure something out, they end up dying. So the family members and the bodyguard dude ends up dying. Then the deputy dude, when he starts talking and asking questions, and the sheriff's all like, if only that Maya girl would have died and everything. And he's like, what? And then he gets like killed and everything, as Maya's still being brainwashed and this and that. So when Scarecrow dude killed Maya's sister, I thought in this moment, like she was gonna do something, try to stop him. She don't do nothing. She don't try to stop him or nothing like that. I'm all like, wait, did this work? Is she becoming a killer now? And so he just lets her go, I guess to forge her own path or whatever. But what if she goes and tell? But he's probably banking she'll come back. So she does leave, drive off, but then she decides to head back and take the shotgun, and then she kills the sheriff. Then she goes into like the room, the shrine, where we see a lot of like the killer pictures and them hanging out in there, like, stuff like that. And Scarecrow dude shows back up, and you think, okay, maybe she's gonna shoot him. But then she doesn't and gives him the rifle. And then it's like he talks to her a little bit more. They kind of like dance a little bit, doing that stranger thing. And it looks like she's falling in love with him. But then she ends up stabbing him as he's going in for, I guess, like a kiss or something like that. Or maybe he kissed her before, and then he started hugging and embracing her, and then she just stabs him. And then she like, kills him after that. So I'm all like, if she was gonna kill him, why in the world didn't she do it when he walked in, when she had the rifle in her hand instead of giving it to him? Because he thought she was on his side and talking about, because she even said, all my loved ones are gone now. I had nothing to care about. So you think, oh, she's turned. And so you're like, okay, so she did not turn. And she was just going along with all this crap to survive. But then when she leaves the little underground place where the shrine and everything is at, their hideout, you see her with the pinup doll mask in hand walking away very slowly, indicating that she has been turned and she will probably become a new stranger and find two other people to go and kill people with. It's kind of one of those up in the air kind of endings. And it's just like, what the heck? Now, I have not gotten into the strangers and who they are yet. So the Scarecrow is Gregory. The pinup girl is Shelly, and she works at like a diner as a waitress. And the last like stranger is Dollface, and that's Jasmine, and she is also a waitress and stuff. Now, nobody knew who they were in the first movie unless you just guess, because there was no reveal. But then in the second movie, we find out that Gregory and Shelly are like two of the strangers. Then in the third, because like it's a stupid explanation of like they were little kids and like I guess some kind of like what is it like private school or religious school or something like that, and there's a game they play where they knock on the door and ask, "Is Tamara here?" And what is it? Shelly was mad at this little girl because she liked Gregory. So when the girl opened the door, Shelly, as a little girl, just killed her and everything. And Shelly had a little pig, and then grew up to be a boar. And she taught the boar how to kill and hunt people down. I kid you not, in the second movie. And in the third movie, we see Gregory and Shelly be teenagers. And the thing about them, the motive behind them as to why they just do this, is there is no real motive. There's no real explanation. They just enjoy killing people. And so Gregory's father, who is the sheriff, he finds this out. And, this is when he tells his son, you can't be doing this no more unless it's strangers coming into town. Then people don't really ask no questions. So he's been covering this up for decades and stuff. Then when they was at the gas station looking for their next target, they see Jasmine and her boyfriend, and they plan on killing them in the hotel. So they follow them, kick down the door, but then all of a sudden Jasmine killed her boyfriend because he promised he would never have eyes for another girl or cheat, and he had eyes for Shelly. And so this pissed her off and she killed him. So that's just it. They're just murderers and everything. There's no real motivation. And they never unmasked Dollface Jasmine. But I figured it was the actress Ella, because there aren't that many main stars in this movie other than background folks. And she is the only other credible actress who's been in other projects, such as Call the Midwife. And Call the Midwife is a huge British show that's been on for a decade and a half now. But she's not on the show no more. And so this right here pissed off a lot of people in the fan base, because they said the simple fact that the strangers are supposed to be just that, complete strangers. You're not supposed to know their identity or their motive and this and that. Now, I knocked that over. And so here's the thing, right? I do remember recalling hearing some people who are fans of this actually excited that the trilogy was going to explain the backstories and stuff. So they are a group of people who actually want to know that. That's within the fan base. Me, somebody who's not a fan, I would like to know as well. I enjoy slasher movies and knowing the motive of the killer. No motive, then I'm just kind of like, I got another Michael Myers situation on my hand. Like, I have to know. This is why I love Scream so much, right? But I do agree with some people. If the movie is called The Strangers and the strangers just do random home invasions and kill people and stuff, then it's best probably not to know their origin or their backstory, this and that. However, there are ways around that where you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have the strangers still be strangers in the movie, but you can still see them lingering around town, interacting with people, maybe hear them say a couple of things here and there, but you don't have to know their names. You know what I'm saying? Because, and also you need a big cast. You can't have a small cast, because it's the idea of everybody's a killer, like in the slasher movie rules. You know what I'm saying? No, not everybody's a killer. Everybody's a suspect. So you have to like stop and think, well, who the heck is the suspect? Who the heck is the killer, right? So that's why you need a medium-sized, large type cast, because you have to guess like who it is, right? That's one of the fun things about Scream. Like, say Scream 2. Scream 2 had a really big cast. Scream 3 had an even bigger cast. So it makes you wonder which one of these people who we do not know and brand new to the franchise, which one is like the killer. And they could have done something like that. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't really have to go into nobody's like background and stuff like that. They are still, even if you know their name, even if you see them lingering around the movie in town, they are still technically strangers if they don't interact too strongly with the main cast and everything, the final girl. Now, as for an actual motive, well, it is kind of curious to know why they just go home invade people and just start killing them. Because here's the thing, a lot of people are mad that the strangers just like go around, they just kill people. Like that's just it. When you see the flashbacks, they just killers with no real motive. Well, technically, isn't that the motive of the strangers when they have the mask on? There's a home invasion. They just start killing people and acting weird. So I don't understand that argument with a lot of the people. But I said one time they could do what Batman the animated series did. There are a group of villains in the comics, and they've made their way into two completely different animated series. And they're called the Trio, I believe. Now, in the Batman on the WB cartoon, they were metahumans. They had powers and stuff, and they looked like animals and everything. In Batman the animated series, they went old school like the comics and just made them into regular people who wore masks of animal faces and stuff, right? So Batman does what Batman does best. He does his detective work and he realizes that whoever these three people are, their mask identifies them because they each have a certain skill set based on that animal and what they do, whether the animal's like a fish or the animal's a bird or a land mammal. So he traced that back to like anything he could find, like a mascot of like a school or like a company they own that specialize, say, in seafood shipment or something like that, right? And it turned out the trio are nothing more but a bunch of rich guys who are very, very wealthy because of their parents. And one of the criminals kidnapped his own girlfriend and tried to ransom her off for a bunch of money because her dad is really rich. But when I think one of the masks came off and she saw who it is, she straight up asked him, why? Why are you doing this? Why have you terrorized Gotham and started robbing complete strangers and everything? And the explanation is one that this episode I did not appreciate growing up. And it's kind of like one of those boring type episodes, but I've learned to appreciate it a heck of a lot more as I gotten older. And so her boyfriend, who's one of the criminals, screams or shouts at her and tells her straight up because they were bored. The reason why, like, they're a bunch of rich guys and they could literally buy the entire town if they wanted to, because that's how much money they got. Or they combine their money, they could probably buy the entire state if they wanted to, right? So why in the world are they breaking into other rich people's houses and stealing from them? And he said straight up, because they're bored, because they are so rich and so wealthy and so famous. You know, they get invited to all the parties. They go to all the country clubs. They know a lot of other rich, famous, stuck-up people. And they're just bored out their minds because they can have whatever they want. You know what I'm saying? And they've done everything. They go rock climbing, they go snorkeling, they go hunting, you know, they play sports and they're really good at that. Nothing is a challenge to them anymore. So they're just bored. They're a bunch of rich boys who are bored out of their minds and everything. And so that's why they do what they do. And that could have been a similar thing with like the strangers. They could have done something similar like that. You know what I'm saying? That could have been like their motive. We didn't have to see like, you know, the whole school thing and the game they played and like them just killing that girl and the pig. We didn't have to see like, you know, the gas station thing and the hotel thing. And it literally could have been like, could they literally tell, like, when Maya asked them, why are you doing this? And they said, because you're here and everything. So that was their motive all along. They just straight up kill people because, hey, you're in the house, they're bored, and they just do that. That could have just been a motive all on its own, but they didn't have to go too much into that backstory, you know? Or to better explain, they could have just said, hey, they're bored, got nothing to do. They saw your home and they all like, hey, wouldn't it just be fun to like do something exciting and just kill you or something like that, like, I don't know, something like that. It was something, you know what I'm saying? Like, be a little bit more creative and everything. Now, who is to blame for all of this, right? Who is to blame for all this craziness? And since the first one wasn't up to peak with a lot of people's expectations, like I said before, they rewrote and refilmed the second and third movie after they was already filmed. Madeline Petch literally said that, like, she wasn't expecting for this movie to take so long to come out. It's literally been 4 years and it was supposed to come out a long time ago. And so, like, who is the blame for all of this? Who did the rewrites? Who did the sloppy editing? Who did the sloppy pacing? Who did, like, the abysmalness of like these movies? And what were the other two original movies originally supposed to be about? Because they had to do reshoots and rewrites and everything. So I'm curious to know what those original movies look like, if they was better or if they were worse. And they should put those out on streaming just so people can see, you know what I'm saying? And so here are our suspects: the director, the writers, and Madeline Petch herself, who is the actress and executive producer. And I said this before, an executive producer does more than just put money into a project. Sometimes they have a little bit of sway power. They get to make decisions. Now, there was a movie just recently came out called The Handmaid with Amanda Seyfried and Sydney Sweeney. And Amanda is listed as an executive producer. Now, she came out and said she had no idea she was an executive producer. They literally just put her name on the project and everything. And she didn't put no money into it or no input. Madeline, however, did have input. I just recently saw an interview with her that came out before the movie came out. And when I'm watching the interview, I noticed something was very, very odd. She kept her head down the entire time as she spoke, and she rarely put it up. And when she did put it up, it was kind of in defiance of what the audience has been saying. And I'm just like, this is kind of weird, because I've seen two other interviews with her, and she's looking dead in the camera. One interview, she's all happy and excited, and I think there was another one when she was on Riverdale talking about, like, makeup and stuff like that. But then there was one interview where she looked dead into that camera and she was pretty pissed off. Why? Because her Riverdale co-star, who played Archie, said that everybody was hooking up on set. This did not go on very well with her. She put the record straight that she was not messing around with nobody on set. And she probably said that because of one or two reasons. Because either she just doesn't want nobody to think she's a floozy, or she probably had a boyfriend at that time, which I think she did at that time. Somebody completely different. And so she was really pissed off and very, very mad. She stuck up for herself. Now she's no longer with that person. Now she's with Tyga. Kylie Jenner's ex, her baby daddy and everything. Which, first, let me just say, I'm happy Madeline is down for the brown. Second, I'm happy she's down for the brown because Madeline is a white South African. If you know anything about them and their racism, boy, trust me, I'm saying dating a black dude is a huge step up. And no, I'm not saying Madeline was a racist in the past. No, I'm not saying that. But a lot of white South Africans are. And if you want to know how racist they are, well, I talked about it in a movie review called The Color of Friendship. And you can watch that movie on Disney Plus because it's a Disney Channel movie of all things. And they say the N-word. And they said the N-word back on TV in that Disney Channel movie because they wanted to show y'all just how racist they are over there in South Africa. And this movie took place in either the 80s or the 90s. If you thought white Americans or white Canadians or white like Irish, English, New Zealand, and this and that were racist, oh boy, you ain't seen nothing yet until you see white South Africans and everything. And yes, white South Africans are white Europeans. They just went over there, colonized it, and enslaved people. So the fact that she's dating Tigra is like impressive. And kudos to her and everything. However, what the world? I know I'm going off topic, but don't worry, I'm gonna get back on topic. What in the world would possess her to date a Kardashian slash Jenner ex? You don't want their leftovers because they don't pick good men. And everything. Now, as for Tigra, I don't know much about him. The only thing I know about him is he's a rapper. He used to have a tiger as a pet, and he's Kylie Jenner's ex. And but why is he her ex and everything? Because for the most part, you don't hear really too much bad about her, like you would say Kim or Chloe or something. So it does make you wonder why they're broken up and everything. He was the Ghostface killer in season 3 of Scream, the television series. And after doing some looking on him in his Wikipedia page, he does have a sketchy background. Like, there are things he's been accused of and everything, like physical assault on his ex-girlfriend, which he better not lay not one fist on her because he would be extremely canceled. This is one of the most flawless looking white girls you have ever seen. If he hits her, oh, he is going beyond cancellation of Jonathan Majors. So hopefully he doesn't do nothing like that. And hopefully those accusations were false back in the day. And so now I'm going back on topic. I just wanted to get into that interview because I'm just like, this is kind of weird. Why is her head down in this interview and everything? Is she like ashamed? Is like, does she know the movie's not that good? And people have been like, hating on this movie and stuff. Like, what's the deal? You know what I'm saying? And she revealed that she was part of the editing process and some of the decision making process and something else. And I'm just kind of like, because she said this is the first time she's ever done anything on this major scale, because she has produced smaller things like, I guess, like indie stuff or maybe short films or something like that. And here's my thing, right? I get it. I really do. She wanted to step up to the plate because she came from Riverdale on the CW. And Riverdale has been ridiculed by so many people who just hated that show and even the fans themselves. Like I said before, I checked out of that show halfway into season 2 because it just got horrible. And even though people were watching that show, and it lasted for about 7 seasons, a lot of people just hated that show even when they watched it. They just kept watching it out of necessity and everything. And even some of them couldn't continue to watch it and stuff, right? So that show has left an embarrassing taste in like the audience mouth as they watch it. And to the point where the lead stars have literally had to make a comeback, and some are still making a comeback to show people that, hey, we are capable actors and everything. We can be in a serious project. You can cast us in like your movies and your TV shows. Don't let this show put a stain on our working resume, similar to that of a Disney Channel star or that of like an 80s, 90s sitcom star or a Power Rangers star. Because those are some of the people who have the hardest time finding work. And so every main person on that show has had to prove themselves outside of that show. And pretty much all of them have done that with the newer projects they have taken on. So she has to, prove herself outside of Riverdale. Sadly, it is not going to be with this trilogy and everything, because this trilogy was a failed experiment. But I do understand why she wanted, to be an executive producer and make certain decisions, because she doesn't want to get screwed over by Hollywood, which so many people have in the past. And I said this before. Peyton List, who came from Disney Channel, she's on a new show called School Spirits on Paramount Plus, and she's an executive producer on that show. And because you don't want to get taken advantage of, you don't want to sign a crappy contract and this and that. But the thing is like she did more than just put money into this movie franchise. She had input. She was a part of the editing process, she said. And the thing is, you just can't come out of nowhere and start doing that. And I know a lot of stars who have went from being like, in front of the camera to behind the camera. Some of them direct, some of them screenwrite, and some of them produce. The difference between them and say Madeline, like say Angelina Jolie, Jonathan Frakes, Drew Barrymore, and all of them, Olivia Wilde, is that Selena Gomez, they've been working for decades and multiple projects and stuff. Some of them have been acting since before Madeline was even born. So they have a good understanding of like Hollywood, and the people who work behind the camera has helped mentor them into like learning how to direct, learning how to produce and screenwrite. Jonathan Frakes, who is literally only known for like Star Trek The Next Generation as Commander Riker and Xanatos on Gargoyles, the cartoon, he directs a lot of newer Star Trek episodes from like other series like Voyager, Enterprise, and that of the new Trek stuff. Same thing with the woman who played B'Elanna Torres on Voyager. And that's because they work closely with the crew, learning how to do this and learning how to do that. Ron Howard is another and stuff. Now, Bryce Howard is trying to do that, but Bryce Howard still needs some work. And my advice to Madeline is do not give up. Keep trying, but actually learn the craft and everything. Like, don't learn on the fly as you're just like, I guess, working on this movie or whatever. Like, take up some smaller projects and other projects and learn from like your creative crew on learning how to do this and learning how to do that. There is a reason why these people go to school to learn how to be screenwriters, directors, and other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't learn on the fly. They spent years learning that stuff. And so do a lot of stars who make the leap onto like director and stuff. They learn, and she's gonna have to learn. So don't give up. Just practice and learn. And I would also suggest stepping back from an authority type role. You can produce something, you can put the money in, and you can star in it. But for now, don't have no input. And for now, don't work in editing or anything else like that. Just star in it, put the money in the project, and learn. Read the comments, watch the review videos and stuff to see where things are going wrong, and then learn to fix them down the road. And then when you are ready, hop back into that creative role and everything. Because clearly she was over her head with this. Now, I'm not trying to be rude or nothing like that, because I would like to see her succeed, because you don't want the stench of Riverdale on your acting resume and everything. And that's what's going to happen, because she hasn't been in that many projects since Riverdale. And some of those projects are a heck of a lot smaller that people have never heard of. This was her chance to break free of that, and she failed. So practice makes perfect and everything, you know? Now, as for the writers and the directors and stuff, y'all ain't got no excuse. I suggest y'all start working in TV shows and like short films and crap like that. And then get back into the bigger stuff 10 years later. Because y'all are to blame as well. Because y'all are the actual professionals who work behind the camera, and it did not work out. How the heck are you going to copy the first two movies and then create that slop that you did in the second and third movie? There is no excuse, and y'all need to be put in Hollywood jail and learn something. And as for the boar, I don't know whose idea that was to add a boar into the movie and a boar fight. But in the interview, somebody asked her, plain and simple, what was your favorite thing about the movie? And she said the boar fight, because that's the most outlandish thing she will be able to do for a while now. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I believe her, man, because the moment you see that boar fight, the first thing you think of, oh, this whole franchise is completely done. It's over. Like, that's it. There's no redeeming yourself after that, especially when you find out the boar was the pet pig of one of the killers and is trained to kill people. And how exactly was it able to find her? I don't know. But there was no hope coming back from that. And I also don't believe her because in another interview, she said when she was on Riverdale, she had a problem with the creator because he made her character into a witch in the final seasons. And she told him, don't have me doing no like hokey pokey witch type stuff that looks embarrassing on screen. And she said that's exactly what happened. He had her have her hands up in the air, chant something with her hands glowing and energy beams coming out her hand. And she was not pleased with that. And I watched that scene. Compared to the boar fight, I'd rather do the hokey pokey like witch stuff. Because I truly feel like when I said this in my review, I feel like the boar fight was tacked on after the reviews of the first movie to show that she is capable of handling herself. Because that just doesn't make no sense. It comes completely out of left field. And like, and she also said this is the most outlandish thing she would do for a while, meaning she doesn't plan on doing nothing like that ever again. So whoever knuckleheaded idea that should have never been added in the movie. And if she really does like that scene, then I don't know what to say about her. Because that didn't make no kind of sense whatsoever. They could have shown her fighting with one of the strangers and really, really, really struggling. I mean, that was just embarrassing. And that's going to put a stain on her career. This movie trilogy is going to put a stain on her career. Whatever her next project is, it has to be a banger because she has the stink of Riverdale on her and the stench of the Stranger trilogy on her. And she's a pretty good actress, you know what I'm saying? Like, she is pretty good at what she does and stuff. And hopefully she can find that next thing she does that will make people respect her as an actress and something that she can learn and grow from. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.